Participants are PDT Achari, former Secretary General, Lok Sabha, and Vinay Kumar, senior political journalist. Moderator is Arjun Jay Chaudhary.
I would like to extend a warm welcome to both our experts, Shri PDT Achari, who is a former Secretary General with the Lok Sabha, and Shri Vinay Kumar, a senior political journalist, for being with us on this program, where we will discuss in detail the important developments in Parliament this week, which would include the appointment of Shri O.M. Birla as the Speaker of the House by a voice vote. We'll try and understand what the role, responsibilities, functions, and powers of the Speaker are, what the appointment process for the role of Deputy Speaker is, the motion of thanks that was presented by Shri Anurag Thakur, which was moved today on the Honourable President's address, the Rajya Sabha's privilege panel, which held 12 MPs guilty of misconduct for causing disruptions and for which caution had been issued, and finally, on NEET, which is the National Eligibility and Entrance Test, and the NTA, the National Testing Agency, wherein the Lok Sabha proceedings have been adjourned till July the 1st. So, very warm welcome to both experts.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Kumar, let's begin by understanding for the benefit of our listeners that there is a parliamentary procedure for the appointment of the Speaker. The Speaker's role is defined in the Constitution of India. So are his powers, functions, responsibilities. This time the Speaker, Shri Om Birla, who was re-elected as Speaker of the House, he is elected as the MP from Kota constituency, has been elected by voice vote and not by consensus. So could you tell us what the proceedings were like in Parliament for the benefit of our listeners?
Arjun, because this Parliament is special in some aspects, because this is 18th Lok Sabha, totally new Lok Sabha after the general elections were over. Then we saw the constitution of 18th Lok Sabha, and 18th Lok Sabha, the first thing at task was pro tem speaker, on which there was some controversy because BJP's Bhartrihari Mahtab, who is a 7-time member of parliament in Lok Sabha, he was appointed as pro tem speaker by the president, Draupadi Murmu. And the job of the pro tem speaker is, the main function is to enable members to take oath of office as members of parliament, as members of newly constituted Lok Sabha, newly elected Lok Sabha. So the opposition was at loggerheads with the government right in the beginning because Congress said that their member of parliament from Kerala, K. Suresh, he was 8-time MP, and the convention is that the senior most member of Lok Sabha should be appointed as pro tem speaker. But the government's view was that 8-term Lok Sabha member, Mr. Suresh, did not have an uninterrupted run. And whereas Mr. Bhartrihari Mahtab, who was earlier with Biju Janata Dal and had joined BJP just before elections, his 7 terms were uninterrupted, without any break. So government, pursued with the argument that they were perfectly right in appointment of Mr. Mahtab as pro tem speaker. So the first controversy between the opposition and the government started on that note. And let us also keep in mind that this time in 18th Lok Sabha, we have a strengthened opposition, with the Congress having 99 MPs, greater in number than the previous 2 Lok Sabhas which we have seen. And on that note, after pro tem speaker was appointed by the president, the India bloc, the opposition grouping, they did not want their assistance by their members of parliament who were also appointed by the president to assist Mr. Mahtab because take oath. And then the proceedings went on of oath-taking ceremony was over. Next main task for the new Lok Sabha is to elect a new speaker. And Mr. Om Birla, as you mentioned, that he is a member of parliament from Kota, a BJP's member, and he was outgoing speaker also. He was speaker in the 17th Lok Sabha as well. And BJP was keen that he should become speaker once again, and that role should be given to him. And following that, the BJP's strategy, the largest party in the House with 240 members, Mr. Om Birla was chosen as speaker. When you rightly said, it was by voice vote. The consensus eluded, and for the first time since 1976, we have seen election of speaker, but the opposition did not press for any division. So Mr. K. Suresh also filed his papers. But since Mr. Birla's motion was taken first and he was declared elected as speaker by voice vote by the pro tem speaker, Mr. B. Mahtab. So that is how he became speaker.
So the theme here is, if you look at the proceedings in the Lok Sabha, is that the appointment was by a voice vote and not by consensus. Mr. Acharya served as the Secretary General of the Secretariat, which assists the functionality of the Speaker who has been appointed now, Shri O.M. Birla. Could you give us an insight into how the appointment of the Deputy Speaker will take place? I understand, as Mr. Kumar mentioned, Mr. Suresh, who is an 8th
Speaker and Deputy Speaker. So this would mean that the election of Speaker and the Deputy Speaker should be done one after the other. And of course, in the last Lok Sabha, there was no Deputy Speaker at all. So Deputy Speaker elected by the House, like the Speaker, both speakers. So you know, the procedure is that the Speaker fixes the date of election. It is not actually appointment, it is election. Fix the date for the election of the Deputy Speaker, and then the House will elect him. The same way as the Speaker was elected. Actually, one very interesting thing that should be noted is that election in the Lok Sabha, election of Speaker or Deputy Speaker, is done on a motion. It is not by the ballot system or anything. So it is on a motion that is moved by one member, seconded by another person, and then it is put to the vote. It may be a voice vote or it may be a recorded vote. So that is the procedure. And if one motion is adopted by the House, then that means the other motions will not be put to the vote at all, because those have become infructuous. So that is the procedure which is followed in the House. So far as the election of Deputy Speaker or Deputy Speaker is concerned. So Deputy Speaker's election is yet to take place. Now the point is whether who should be the Deputy Speaker. In fact, if you look at the past practice, in most of the cases, Deputy Speakers were from the opposition. That was a convention which was started long back. The idea was that Speaker will be from the ruling party, and then the Deputy Speaker should be from the opposition, so that there is a proper balancing in the House. Well, on certain occasions it was not done, but mostly this practice has been followed. This convention, it has become a convention. There is no rule or direction or anything on these matters. These are all governed by conventions only. In fact, as you know, in Parliament, apart from the conventions, so the conventions in the parliamentary context are as important as the rules and directions are. That is one thing we should understand. Conventions are not to be easily broken. Unless the point is that on the election of Speaker and Deputy Speaker, by and large there has been a consensus. Of course, there were some occasions when people had contested. There were contests, but otherwise, I think it happened in the case of Speaker. It happened only on 4 occasions. On the rest of the occasions, it was all by consensus. And this time, there was no consensus. The opposition put up moved a motion proposing the name of Mr. Suresh, but they did not press. That motion, of course, was not taken up because the other motion already been adopted, and they did not press. Therefore, there was no occasion for a vote in the House. It was by voice vote. But here I must tell one more thing. Voice vote is normally followed in almost all the legislatures. But I was looking into the Constitution to find what exactly is the authority for this practice of voice vote. I couldn't find any. Under the Constitution, it is actually the vote, recorded vote, because it says that every question is decided by a majority of votes given by members present and voting. So it's very clear. Majority is determined in terms of number, and that number can be ascertained only by vote. So it's very clear. Constitution is very clear on this. But legislatures have been following normally this practice. Not only here, outside also, they have been following this practice. But here, of course, our rule says that if a member challenges this decision of the Speaker, then there will be recorded vote. That vote division will be there. Otherwise, it will be by voice vote.
Of the first and foremost quality of the Speaker, which is expected of him, as opposition leaders have been saying, that our voice should be heard So speaker has to be impartial. The speaker is apolitical. He is not assigned to any political party after his election, and he is the master of the house. So that and regulates the discussion, debates as per the rules and procedures of the house, which are very well laid out in the rule book and as well as in the conventions and precedents also. The speaker has to admit, if you take today's example where opposition wanted to move the adjournment motion over NEET issue, but the speaker disallowed it. So it is the speaker's decision to allow discussion and debate, adjournment motion, short duration discussions, and the most important being during the day when a regular proceeding is being held. The question hour is the most important, where the MPs ask their questions, start questions and unstart questions. There is a process in Lok Sabha Secretariat how a question is admitted through a lottery system, and then the speaker has to. The first hour goes for the question hour from 11 a.m. till 12. Then the 0 hour. Then after that, the short duration discussion, debate, legislative business, and it is the most important function of the speaker is to see through the government's scheme of things of legislations, because the parliament is the body which makes laws. So the legislation part is also very important, and the speaker has to ensure that to allot hours in proportion to the strength of a party. Suppose your party has 20 MPs, so that time will be allotted to you. And speaker has to ensure that all parties get proportionate time for discussion and debate on a particular issue. And there has been a lot of protest by the opposition whenever important bills and pieces of legislation have been passed without any debate, because it is the people upon a certain provision, upon certain law, because judiciary is there to implement the law, and parliament is the body which makes the laws. So speaker's position is very important in that aspect, and not only smooth functioning of the house, but a balanced approach, a constructive approach, where each of the member feels that he or she is being heard on the floor of the house, and that is the main function of the speaker remains that.
Venukumarji, test and the National Testing Agency has been, the questions have been raised by the opposition in the Lok Sabha proceedings have been adjourned now till the 1st of July by the Honorable Speaker. But we're also seeing that investigation is being conducted by the CBI, the Central Bureau of Investigation. Arrests have been made in Patna, Bihar as well. So how do you see the balance between what's happening in Parliament and the steps being taken by the executive to enforce the law?
Opposition also has a point to point to score in Parliament, because the nation is watching what their representatives are doing in Parliament. Youth, millions of students have been protesting over these allegations of paper leaks and corruption and exams being cancelled and postponed, and a NEET PG exam, which is to be taken by qualified doctors for post-graduation, that was postponed at the last minute. So these are all professional exams. So I think rightfully the students and the young men and women were rightly expressing their resentment and anger, and the opposition wanted to raise that issue by way of adjournment motion in both the houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, which was not allowed by the speaker. But the government's view is that we are ready for discussion on this issue. And if you recall, the President Draupadi Murmu, in her address to the joint sitting of Parliament, had also said that obstructing Parliament proceedings should not be the aim of the opposition, but opposing the policies, having a debate on policies of the government. That opposition can come, but not obstruction. But here, after the ruckus, today the Lok Sabha was adjourned till Monday, till July 1. So opposition, now we have leader of youth and the student. They are looking forward to their representatives in Parliament. And we want to raise this important issue, to which the government's Parliamentary Affairs Minister, Mr. Kiran Rijiju, said, obviously nothing could be said in Parliament, but outside the House he said that the government is ready to discuss this issue and let the members know in both the houses that how investigation is progressing. There also opposition is also trying to put in dock the Education Minister, Mr. Dharmendra Pradhan, because it is his ministry which is responsible, and MTA is responsible for holding these. National Testing Agency is responsible. So the opposition has its role is trying to make the government accountable and the ministry accountable for all the alleged lapses and irregularities which have come to light over the past few months in these examinations. The government has said that we'll inform you, we'll apprise you with all the developments which have taken place so far, and there has been implemented a stringent law which has provision for 1 crore rupees of penalty, 10 years of rigorous imprisonment in paper leak cases. So that has also been notified. So the government also wants to put its views, its side inside the house. But opposition was adamant. I think this is the first occasion when opposition wanted to score a point. But unfortunately, the proceedings could not take place.
Mr. Achari, there's a constructive way of dealing with such issues in Parliament by raising your voice and letting the opposition know that you are accountable for the executive decisions being taken. But if there are disruptions and the Speaker feels that it is liable for punishment, then how does the Speaker deal with that? We have the Rajya Sabha Privileges Panel, which has held 12 MPs guilty of misconduct for causing disruptions, and caution has been issued. What is the convention in dealing with such matters? As you mentioned earlier, that conventions and precedents are a very important part of how a speaker conducts the House.
Let me say a word about this German motion, which was given notice of opposition today, and then I will come to the other issue. Here, one thing we should know to the government on something where the government has failed, that is put in the rule book so that the members could use it in appropriate cases. The opposition felt that it is an issue on which there is a failure of the government. After all, government doesn't mean the ministers alone. Government means the entire bureaucracy and the whole setup. So somebody somewhere has failed, and naturally, here in our parliamentary system, the ministers, the council of ministers, are collectively responsible to the House. They are accountable to the House. So from that point of view, members in the opposition have a right to move an adjournment motion to censure the government for what they consider the failure of the government. And then the Speaker looks at the merit of the case and should look at the merit of the case and then decide the issue. It is not that there are opportunities available in other debate. That is not the issue at all. The issue is the members of this Speaker has to decide this. When Soma Chatterjee was a speaker here, I was the Secretary General. There were occasions when issues came up. Normally, the government opposes the adjournment motion. They don't allow they do not want adjournment motion to be. I do not know why. There is no point because the government has a majority, and any motion, for example, you move for the no confidence motion, and the government government is opposed to that. But motion is moved and discussion takes place and the government replies to that. It is put to vote, and if the government has a majority, then the whole motion goes. That's all. Similarly, in the case of adjournment motion also, same thing can happen. But the Speaker has to decide the urgency of the matter and the seriousness of the issue. That is it. But what I have found is, from my experience, I can say that normally that is not the approach which is normally taken. In motion, it has to be disallowed. That is the way it has been dealt with all through. Now, secondly, about the way in which the Rajya Sabha is dealing with the disciplinary matters. The House has the power to discipline the members who indulge in obstructions and all that. But the procedure which is being adopted there appears to be a very new procedure. That is, referring the obstruction to the Privileges Committee. Because Privileges Committee doesn't deal with that. Obstruction is not a matter of privilege. It's not a breach of privilege. Breach of privilege has very definite connotations, and obstruction doesn't come under that. Obstruction is a different thing.
Disruption.
Obstruction and disruption and all that. These are all different things. You don't allow the business to proceed. That is the thing. So you are obstructing the business, and for that there is adequate remedy in the rules. That is the thing. So the Speaker or the Chairperson, whoever, has to use his power under that rule to discipline the member. But referring this matter to the Privileges Committee is something which I have never come across that. And in my opinion, that is not perhaps the proper way of dealing with that, because privileges are different. It's a very settled matter. The whole question of privilege. What exactly constitutes privilege? A breach of privilege.
Is freedom of expression a privilege that is given to a member of parliament?
Yes, and there are certain things which are listed out in the constitution, but then it says that our members do have the privileges which the members of the House of Commons had in 1950. At that point of time, whatever privileges the members of the House of Commons had would be available to the members of Indian Parliament and Indian legislatures.
On the immunities when you talk about privileges?
Immunities, know that you can't be taken to the court for what you say in the House and so on. And there are so many other issues, so many other privileges. Question is, the issue of privilege, the whole matter of privilege, breach of privilege is a settled thing, settled area. That cannot be mixed with the obstruction in the House. Cannot be. That is my opinion about that.
Vinay Kumarji, could you tell us about the motion of thanks by Shri Anurag Thakur, which was moved today, the Honorable President's address?
Yeah, this is also, a president and a convention tradition that when joint sitting two houses takes place and the president addresses the two houses, there is a expression of gratitude towards president from the house, which is in both the houses because it is a joint sitting. So the motion of thanks is moved by a member usually from the Treasury bench, which Anurag Thakur did, but today it couldn't be taken up. And there's a debate on motion of thanks because what the president's address normally contains is the government policies and programs and what is the vision of the government. Since it is a new government, so she touched upon in her address various issues, even including NEET exams, energy and financial sector, agriculture, education, infrastructure, a lot of points she dealt with, Honorable President Draupadi Murmu. But that is the document of the government. So the House expresses its gratitude to the President that the President came and addressed the House. And there is a debate on the opposition tries to punch holes in the address. And opposition has already said that, it's a scripted speech of the government, but the president's address is approved by the union cabinet, and it is the vision and policies of the government which is laid before the two houses. So both the houses debate that, and then they approve this motion of thanks and send it to the president.
Vinay Kumarji, when we come back to the role, responsibilities of the Speaker, and we talk about the authority and control exercised by the Speaker as the presiding officer of the House of the People, the Lok Sabha, we talk about powers, which includes maintaining order and decorum. We discussed that just now in terms of how to regulate conduct of the members. I would like to touch upon another power of the Speaker, which is the interpretation of the Constitution as well. Is that the case with the Speaker as well? Does the Speaker have the power to interpret the Constitution? And the other aspect is that deciding on whether a bill is a money bill or not, especially with the budget coming up. So could you...
I think that power is with the Speaker to decide whether it is a money bill or not, because that makes a lot of difference, because all the financial powers are with the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha just approves whatever the Lok Sabha passes. But the interpretation of Constitution, I don't think that is the Speaker's prerogative. That is best left to the Supreme Court in this case. And yes, the Speaker decides when the government presents the table of legislations and when these bills have to be taken up and when debate has to be in discussion on these important bills have to be taken up. So the Speaker regulates those discussions, and the schedule is laid out in consultation with the Parliamentary Affairs and the concerned ministry which is moving the bill. But as far as the Speaker goes by the rules and procedures, the rule book, as Mr. Achari was rightly pointing out, there are certain privileges, certain rights of the members, and Speaker has the power to allow certain motion and to allow, how can a member of Parliament raise a matter by short duration discussion, by adjournment motion, by calling attention motion, and by starred and unstarred questions, written answers which they get from the ministers, and in starred questions they can even grill the minister in the House. So that is all decided by the Speaker, who plays a very, very important role in that, how question hour is conducted. I think that is also very important, because we have members of Parliament from all corners of our across the length and breadth of our country. So they are very keen to raise matters which are very relevant and important to their constituencies. So no, they are very keen to raise these issues and to raise the voice of their constituencies, why they have been elected as members of parliament.
Well, I would like to thank both our honorable experts, Shri P.D.T. Achari, former Secretary General with the Lok Sabha, and Shri Vinay Kumar, a senior political journalist, for being with us on this Akashvani program where we discussed on the important developments in Parliament this week. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on current affairs. Now we bring you a discussion on important developments in Parliament this week. The participants were PDT Achari, former Secretary General Lok Sabha, and Vinay Kumar, senior political journalist. Moderator was Arjun J. Chaudhary. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on our mobile app News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel News on AIR Official. You may share your feedback about this program through email at airnsdtalks@gmail.com or WhatsApp on 9289094044.